Hello, I'm Dr. John Pelletieri, President and co-founder of the International Society for Emotional Intelligence. ISEI is a nonprofit educational organization committed to the advancement of emotional intelligence through research, education, and professional applications. We have members in more than 30 countries on every continent and executive and advisory boards that are comprised of top researchers and experts in the field. ISEI is dedicated to addressing how emotional intelligence can be applied to improve societal problems, to increase individual and group well-being, and to create more caring and responsible citizens of our global society. I am pleased today to join two of my colleagues from the International Society. Paul Edwards is an EI specialist and consultant with the New York City Police Department.
Hello.
He is the founder and the co-director of the Emotional Intelligence Urban Initiative, which is a special program within our organization dedicated to using emotional intelligence to address urban issues. Dr. Fritz Gillett, a clinical psychologist in New York City, is a member of the Urban Initiative Advisory Board. Dr. Gillett has hosted several TV and radio shows on psychology and its applications to everyday life. Together, we have created this online series entitled Conversations in Emotional Intelligence to educate the general public about the importance of using emotional intelligence. This is our first episode, and being that this is March 2020 in the middle of the global pandemic, we're going to be focusing our first 6 sessions in our weekly series on using EI to cope with the COVID-19 crisis. Now more than ever, the world can certainly benefit from understanding the range of emotions that we are all experiencing, and also benefit from being intelligent about how we use our emotions to adapt. So gentlemen, we certainly have a lot to speak about. A lot of emotions to cover.
We certainly do. These are unprecedented times. I know from daily working with clients, it's one of the first times where I can have them coming in and I know that I can share with them something that we're all going through. This pandemic, the crisis, and all the emotions and feelings that it brings up. And one of the most common questions I'm getting is how to cope with it. So when the idea to actually join my colleagues here and talk about it and see if we can develop some strategies and share that with the public, I was all on board. So I'm really happy to be here.
Yes.
I'm also happy to be here. And on that note, Fritz, I'd like to, if you don't mind us or sharing, how have we been coping? How have you been coping with this pandemic? John, you and Fritz, how have you been?
Sure.
Well, I was remembering that a few weeks ago I was shopping and noticing how there were a lot of people that were already anxious and worried, and they were buying up all of the water and the paper towels. And I remember there was still some left when I was shopping. And so I grabbed my one of everything and thought, I'm being pretty well balanced and emotionally intelligent here, and I'm not panicking. And then a few weeks later, when I went to the same shopping venues, the supermarkets, and saw the produce section was well stocked and it was beautiful, but the rest of the supermarket, especially the cleaning supplies and paper supply sections, were all gone. I wondered whether I actually, wasn't coping very well, especially when I was there a few weeks ago. I thought maybe I wasn't worried enough. And at this point, I started to feel differently and felt a little panicked myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How about you, John?
Yeah, I've gone through a range of emotions. I've felt really just down and low energy. I think just because everything around is changing. We're working from home, kids are home from school. We can't go out. It's just everything happened so quickly, so suddenly, and so extreme that, yeah, it's really thrown me off. So I have some days I'm really worried, and some days I'm just feeling down.
I think for me, it's being, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think for me, it's being shut in has been a big part for me. But this podcast and this exercise and what we're all processing, but also wanting to impart to the community, this is helpful for me too, you know. So
Sure. Well, like
it's good to be here.
As Fitz said earlier, we're all in this together. So I know we're trying to help the public with some strategies and knowledge about emotional intelligence. It's helping ourselves as well. But really, everyone's going through a range of feelings with the COVID-19 crisis. I mean, certainly fear is a major one. Fear of getting sick, fear of dying, issues around not working, unemployment, and financial problems now, creating tremendous stress and anxiety. I've heard a lot of people feeling extreme frustration because their kids are home from school and they got to try to help them with their, homework and things like that. And also kids can't go out. Everyone's cooped up in the house, so a lot of frustration. Fritz, you mentioned some of the urgency and anxiety. The supermarkets are empty. Will we have enough resources? Okay, it's really just uncertainty about the future. How long will this last? When will it be over? Will it get worse before it gets better? So there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of extreme emotions all around. And I'm sure anyone listening could relate to some of those, if not all.
So despite the fact that we have a strong hold on an understanding of what emotional intelligence is, we need to impart, John, to the community what exactly EI is and how the purpose of this podcast, how we can raise our EI to cope with this.
Right.
Because being able to answer that question will answer the question I get on a daily basis, because clients are asking me, what's your take on it? And how are you managing this? So if our discussion today could really answer the question to some basic strategies for dealing with this kind of crisis, this unprecedented crisis in our own lifetimes, we'd be doing a lot for our viewers and listeners.
And because we can teach EI does not mean we have mastered it. It is as what John is going to tell us now. It is an ability which can turn into a skill, correct?
Absolutely, right. I think that the simple definition that's easiest to grasp is emotional intelligence is a set of abilities for using emotions to adapt. I could break that down. It's a set of abilities. So like you were saying, Paul, we could use it. We could develop it. Okay? You could always get better at certain skills if you practice them. So it's a set of abilities for using emotions. Emotions are information. They tell us something. We need to listen to emotions, not just suppress them or disconnect from them. We need to listen. There's information in those emotions. And then the part of intelligence, well, intelligence is adaptation. So how do we use emotions and the information in those emotions? How do we use that intelligently to adapt to our life situation on a small scale, and in this case, on a pandemic scale, on a global scale?
So emotions contain information.
Yes. And
it's information that we can use, especially for using that information in balance with what? Okay, we have emotions. Emotions are giving us information, but I'm sensing that there needs to be a balance between that and something else.
Well, we're going to look at the mood meter in a little bit. It's a tool that we use in the field. And it's really about balancing the intensity, the level of the emotion. You can have pleasant or unpleasant emotions. And then you also have the intensity of emotions. So let's look at some of the emotions we might be dealing with in the COVID-19 crisis. Fear. A lot of people are feeling fear. Okay. If we feel too little of that emotion, that's not so good. You're saying, Fritz, about a month ago, 3 weeks ago, it was nothing to be afraid of. Oh, maybe they're overreacting. I was thinking the same thing. This is a little bit over the top. Now it's like, whoa, no, this is real. This is very real. So to not feel enough fear or worry is not intelligent. People will not engage in safe behaviors, in practicing social distancing. If you have too little fear. If you have too much fear, it's overwhelming. You're frozen, you're paralyzed, you're obsessing, you're ruminating. That's extreme. That's not necessarily healthy for your well-being either. So the goal of applying emotional intelligence to dealing with fear and worry is how do we have just the ideal balance? Not too much, not too little. Just what's the right balance that could keep us sharp, keep us aware, keep us attuned into what we're doing, and don't do any risky things, but at the same time being able to live life in a productive way.
And I'd like to say, which I think is very important, that we have been taught to read, we have been taught to write, we've been taught many things, but we as a society have not been taught to deal or regulate our emotions. It's not something that has been a part of, and you know, correct me if I'm wrong, John, has been a part of, you know, our nurturing, you know, from.
Sure.
So I think we all deserve a pass if we understand that emotions is something that has not been part of most people's nurturing and upbringing from birth.
We've actually been taught to downplay them, to not pay attention to them. I know you work with various populations, and some populations, professional populations, people are trained not to focus on their emotions at all.
That's right. And that also speaks to another important point, that we have to practice this every day. It's not like, okay, I'll hear the podcast, I have it, you know, I got this fact. No, it's really something you have to bring to life. It's a set of abilities, and we could use them at any point in the day. It's small interactions with our kids or family members. On a large scale, you know, you could use these abilities, and you need to practice them all the time. Just tuning into what you're feeling, and then say, you know, being mindful of what you're going through. That is a skill. It's a habit to develop.
Mm-hmm. You would mention that information, emotions are information. So we get some of that information from our physiological responses. But before that, we have this mood meter, right, John? Which would help us to pay attention to that information, which comes from the body and other places too.
Yeah,
right?
I think a good time to introduce the mood meter now. And this was developed by Mark Brackett, my colleague at Yale University, who's the director of the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence. And also David Caruso was involved in that. He's also a top leader in the EI field. And we're going to introduce it now because we're going to be using this mood meter throughout our series. So that's why we want to introduce it here in the first series. As you can see, there's 4 quadrants. And the right side, the yellow and green, represent pleasant emotions. The left side of the mood meter, the blue and the red, represent unpleasant emotions. The top part of the mood meter is high energy, where it's a higher heart rate and breathing, so it's just more energized emotions, versus the lower half, the blue and green, are lower energy emotions. So for example, in the COVID-19 crisis here, a lot of people are feeling fear, worry, uncertainty, anger. Any of that could be in that red quadrant, in the upper left quadrant, high energy and unpleasant feelings. You might feel sad, lonely, desperate, depressed, down. Those feelings relate to the blue zone, unpleasant feelings but low energy. Yellow zone would have pleasant feelings but higher energy, so happy, hopeful, optimistic, enthusiastic. And then in the green zone would have pleasant feelings but a low energy, like calm, relaxed, peaceful. So any emotion could be mapped anywhere on this mood meter. And Paul, you were asking a good question before. What about information in emotions? You know, what does the pleasant or unpleasant emotions tell us? Well, when we're feeling pleasant emotions in the yellow or the green zone, there's an equilibrium, there's a balance. You know, there's no threat, there's no problem happening. We're happy, we're calm, so things are balanced, there's an equilibrium. When you're on the red or the blue zones in the mood meter, the unpleasant side, the left side, those emotions indicate that something is unbalanced. Okay, if we're feeling fear, there's a threat. If we're feeling anger, there's some injustice. If we're feeling sadness, there's some type of loss. So the left side of the mood meter is indicating an imbalance, a disequilibrium. And we need to pay attention to those feelings and understand what's the needs and the meanings underneath them in order to deal with that.
And it's very important to understand the mood meter. With it comes, we want to enhance your vocabulary, your emotional vocabulary, and
Absolutely.
And because we're saying fear and we're saying sad and all those things. The mood meter is more vast than that as it pertains to expanding your vocabulary. You might feel fear, but you might feel horrified maybe initially. You might feel frantic or panicky. I guess we'll discuss this in later podcasts, but the mood meter is also to get you to get in touch with your emotional vocabulary so you can be more expressive and see the ranges of the emotions that you feel.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I know you've
Fritz,
done a lot with emotional literacy, Paul, and the mood meter's a good tool that we've used in the programs we've done. That yes, it's not only tuning into where are you in a general sense, which of the four quadrants, but then more specifically, what are the exact emotions, right?
Fritz, you told a story about when you entered the supermarket in the produce aisle, how it made you feel. You want to recall?
Yes, because I think it had been after coming from a Costco where I saw nothing but mayhem, and then I walk in there and I see a very bountiful and colorful, beautiful produce section. A lot of supermarkets open into that. And I remember actually feeling good. And then so I'm liking the idea of introducing a mood meter conceptually because it's getting people to kind of think of tuning into their feelings. And I remember tuning into my feelings. I walked into the supermarket and actually feeling pretty encouraged. Oh, things are not so bad. There's plenty of produce here. But then as I continued to check into my mood using my own internal mood meter, I noticed that when I went to the paper aisle, which was desolate, the canned food aisle, which was desolate, that my mood was shifting and then shifting rapidly.
So I think the mood meter is such a sublime tool. It's simple but sublime. The reason why I say that is because if you can incorporate this, if you can become a walking mood meter, it's simple because it's not hard to memorize this
Mm-hmm.
Concept.
lovely looking, colorful looking piece, and even use simple words initially. But if you can incorporate this in your what would you say, John?
I guess in your sense of mindfulness.
Yes. So your
Tuning
normal operating,
it will help people to
working,
regulate.
squirrel tendencies. Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah, there is a mood meter app. The Yale Center has put out a mood meter app which people could use. I actually use it for a month or two to track my moods every day. It was actually very useful, but I like the idea of internalizing it so we always have it with us and we could always tune into where am I here? It's just a tool to use to kind of be more aware of what we're feeling. Because we're always feeling something, and often those feelings are impinging or impacting how we think and how we act.
Mm-hmm.
And when we could tune into those emotions, we have a better sense of what's going on.
I mean, away from the app, you can download the mood meter, you can copy it, you can put it on the fridge, you can talk to your children about it. You don't have to be a professional as it pertains to mental health and emotional intelligence to introduce this to your children, especially in an environment where we're in close quarters. This is something we can share with the people around us, family, to also make us all more aware and in our interaction for self-awareness of others, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of selves, aware of others, and empathy too.
Absolutely. Right. No, I like that suggestion, Paul, that families, maybe how are we dealing another issue in the COVID crisis here? We're all together in a house together. People many hours with their family members. Maybe the mood meter could be a good tool. How is everyone feeling right now? And again, it's not about good or bad, and that's important. You notice how I mentioned the mood meter. I talked about pleasant versus unpleasant emotions. I try not to use positive versus negative emotions, because negative would imply there's something wrong or something bad. Nothing wrong about feeling fear or anger or sadness. Those are intelligent emotions, certainly in today's crisis. Nothing wrong with that. So they're not negative in that sense. They're just unpleasant. So if everyone could tune into how are we feeling, and then, now we have some information about the whole family, everyone in the family. That's actually a good strategy that people might want to try.
The acknowledgement of emotions, of your emotions, is emotional intelligence, is an intelligent
yes, that's
way.
right. I would agree with that. That's a good one. Yeah.
And that's I'm glad that we have the imagery of the mood meter, the concept, because as obvious as it may seem as we're talking about it, tune into your emotions. What are your emotions telling you? It's often not something people do. They will literally be feeling this sense of doom and gloom inside, but not be paying attention to the emotions and the information that's being presented. And then they proceed to try and do things in a logical, linear fashion when their emotions were telling them that there's danger or that there's an issue. And so the idea of a first skill in emotional intelligence, tuning into your own felt sense of emotions, is a great thing to leave people with right now.
Yes.
Information. Fritz, I'd like to ask Fritz very quickly. Did you coin the phrase that social distancing is not social isolation, or was that
I,
somebody
I,
else?
I don't think so. But, we
Okay.
hear
I just
about
wanted to be
social,
sure.
it's an unfortunate term. I think they should have probably said physical distancing. But to say
Okay.
everyone must be getting into social distancing, people will put that too closely next to social isolation, which a
Right.
lot of people, as a person was telling me earlier today, they already were socially isolated. So this is like regular. But the
Yeah.
idea of physical distancing while using this technology, all these screens that, we used to say we have too much of on social media, we should have maybe a little bit more of it in a forum like this where we're connecting to one another.
Right. Right. Yeah, and it's interesting how our thinking influences our emotions. When you say social distancing, that puts a thought in your mind that leads to isolation, leads to loneliness. And by reframing the way we think about something, allows us to feel differently about it. It creates a different set of mind, a different mindset.
All right. So Paul, you were saying something about, okay, what's the feeling that one can now have walking into a supermarket and seeing the beautiful, colorful produce section?
I think if we go to the supermarket, we should go to the produce section first to remind us of the mood meter. So, because we might see some other things in the supermarket that might bring us to an anxious state. But I think if you can walk with the mood meter, then it will help you again.
There you
With
go.
all adaptation, correct?
Mhm.
So, but
Sure.
you know, the produce section, and it's funny, but why not? Why not? You
Yeah.
know, go to the places in supermarket that make you feel, or that
Right.
will, and as you mentioned, one time, John, that if we are uncomfortable, we can totally leave a situation. We don't have to, whether it's a media or,
That's a
you know,
that's a type of emotional regulation. If you're getting anxious or stressed with people around, or a desolate feeling in a certain part of the supermarket, you can always leave. If you're watching too much CNN and too much news of COVID-19 constantly,
Turn
that
it
could
around.
create a lot of anxiety and stress. So make a choice to watch a certain amount, one TV show maybe, and then that's it. Don't let yourself get overwhelmed. So
so
disengaging is a strategy.
to be emotionally intelligent is to be emotionally intelligent is to regulate, and that's another part of one of the definitions of EI. Correct?
Absolutely. Your regulation. Right. And that goes back to, like we were saying, not too much, not too little. And there's an important difference. I think is important that the public knows this distinction. We don't want to suppress emotions or disconnect from emotions, because then they go under the surface. They're not acknowledged. They're not processed. That's not necessarily the most effective way. I know, people online, they go watch a TV show, or they go onto their phones or something, and they disconnect. But I think disengaging is a slightly different word. If you're feeling stressed about something, or stressed with a family situation, so teenage kids want to go out and they can't go out, whatever's happening, you're feeling stress and tension, you could say, look, I'm going to make a decision not to engage in that right now. I'm not ignoring the problem. I'm not ignoring the emotions. I'm just not going to engage with those emotions right now. I'm going to step away and engage in something that's going to help recharge me and refuel me, and help me feel more resilient. I'll get back to those emotions and that problem at another time when I'm able to really deal with it. So choosing to
I think
disengage is a conscientious and can be a very intelligent
right.
choice, as opposed to just
Mhm.
squashing it and forgetting it doesn't exist. That's not so intelligent.
Right.
I'm often encouraging
Um,
people to focus. Where you focus your energy and your attention is usually where you're going to feel. So if you're in an unpleasant emotional state, and that's because you've probably been staring at CNN for too long and
Mhm,
watching the loop over and over again of
mhm.
anxiety-producing stories, you have a choice. You can switch the channel. You can go to the animal channel and watch cute cats, whatever it takes. Cute dogs, if that's what you're into, and you have a choice to refocus your energy, because beyond the initial information that you're getting, and if it's continuing to be the same over and over again, you're not getting anywhere by continuing to focus on stuff that's stressful.
Right. So,
and I
so
want to say that we're talking about regulation and self-awareness and awareness of others, and that we need to be empathetic to each other. But people are going to have moments where they just may just break down and they just have to
Mhm.
regroup. We all of this stuff right in this moment is stuff to have at hand. But you might have moments where you just have total chaos. And that's
That's
okay
okay.
too. But
That's okay.
these tools are to bring us back from chaos to
Mhm.
some
Sure.
level of
Sure. Yeah, those chaotic moments are just in those moments. They're not forever.
right.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it's just about time to finish up. So in sum, I'd like to just touch on some of the points. We talked about emotional intelligence
Mhm.
as a set of abilities for using emotional information in adaptive ways. Talked about the mood meter as a tool for tuning into emotions. But we're going to be using that mood meter throughout the series, and we'll talk about other skills like emotional planning, emotional knowledge. And we touched on a few different strategies. So the idea of maybe disengaging, choosing to disengage from something if it's too stressful, choosing to be more focused, maybe on something pleasant or energizing or something that's more positive and hopeful. So you can have a balance then. Paul, you mentioned the importance of empathy, understanding others' feelings and self-awareness, understanding our own feelings. Just being able to tune into those emotions is a beginning skill. And lastly, the idea of practicing these every day. It's a skill. We got to develop it, just like any other kind of skill. Try to bring it into our daily repertoire. So
Um,
we hope this was helpful to you. And we will have future series every week to focus on using emotional intelligence in the COVID-19 crisis. Any last closing comments here?
I'm
I
looking
would
forward.
like to say that. Go on. Go ahead, Fritz.
I was going to say I'm looking forward to continuing this conversation because I think I'm going to share this with people so that they can listen in and develop their strategies and skills.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to say that I want all of us to become a walking mood meter. Share the mood meter with your friends. Share the mood meter with your children. Get the app, copy it, put it on the fridge, have a conversation. That's a first start. And I think to we know that when you feel better, you know, we're all trying to heal and find our way. I think that's a good start. This mood meter. So until
Well
next
said.
time. Until next time.
Yeah. Thank you. And I hope everyone is safe and healthy, practicing physical distancing and practicing emotional intelligence. And we'll see you in episode 2 next week.